So if you're an Iron Maiden fan or specifically a fan of Bruce Dickinson, I think you'll have fun with this little video that we have here today. What I found is basically it's a little interview with Bruce Dickinson back in 1983, not long after Peace of Mind came out. It's not very long, but I think you'll enjoy this little interview. You know, I love Bruce Dickinson. I think like a lot of people my age, we first became aware of him when we saw the music video for Run to the Hills. I saw that, I think, on some public access TV music video show one Sunday morning. And, you know, that song starts, and then here's this guy with this just massive, his voice. And it wasn't just that he had this great voice. The way he held himself, I think he had that armband with the spikes or studs on it or something. And the way his presence, his charisma was so amazing. And so you just instantly fall in love with this guy because he's just so great. You know, the music's so powerful and intense, and his voice, he's got that operatic but still growly and loud. And it was just so much energy. It was so great. But then years later, you learn more about him and you realize just the depth of this guy. He's this kind of a Renaissance man, and he's a professional at fencing, and he is an airplane pilot, and he's an author and a screenwriter, and not just being a singer and a songwriter, and just the list goes. I think he started a flying training company, and just all these different things this guy had done. Just this really incredibly remarkable guy, and happens to be the singer for one of the biggest heavy metal bands ever, on top of all this other stuff that he does. But he's just a fascinating guy. And I read his autobiography a while ago, or didn't read it. I listened to it when I would go running. And what does this button do? And I need to go back and listen to it again because I listened to so many of these rock star biographies, and then I probably forget 95% of the stuff that I heard in it. But the whole time I'm just thinking, this is so fascinating. Anyway, if you haven't listened to it, I liked listening to it because he read it. And so it's just fantastic. It's so interesting listening to him and telling the story of all the stuff. So anyway, but I found this little article. This is from 1983. This was in the Waterloo Region Record, August 23rd, 1983, on page 45. Not very long, but if you like Iron Maiden and Bruce Dickinson, I think you'll have a little bit of fun with this. And again, part of what makes these things so interesting is that we hear what they were saying at the time. You know, it's another thing to listen to Bruce as he writes that book. When did it come out? 2017 or something? You know, decades later. It's another thing to hear them as they're experiencing it, you know, telling that story. So this article is called "Metal Image Chafes Iron Maiden Singer," and this is in the it looks like it was originally printed in the Los Angeles Times. Bruce Dickinson, lead singer of Iron Maiden, still is not used to people assuming that he is sinister, degenerate, violent, and uncouth. There are reasons for these assumptions. First of all, some people assume that everyone who is a lead singer in a heavy metal band, particularly one named after a medieval torture instrument, cannot be wholesome. Also, those who have seen Dickinson run amok on stage assume he carries much of that fury and ferocity with him off stage. Finally, Iron Maiden has a reputation, primarily based on on the behavior of former members, of being a pack of reckless rowdies. Dickinson does not really fit this image. He is a bright, articulate gentleman. His spare time, the 24-year-old Englishman explains, is devoted to practicing fencing, not pursuing decadence. Dickinson is also turned off by people who assume he is a drug freak. Quote, "I don't take drugs, but of course everybody thinks I do because I'm in a heavy metal band. I hate it when somebody comes up to me and says, 'Do you want to get high? Do you want to smoke some dope? Do you want to take some cocaine?' Unquote." According to Dickinson, the only kind of high he relishes comes from performing. Quote, "I do go a bit crazy on stage," unquote, says Dickinson, who was originally attracted to heavy metal music by listening to Deep Purple as a teenager. That's interesting. I might be getting the books wrong, but I think there's a part in the book where he talks about actually meeting Ian Gillan. Because Ian Gillan, I think, as I recall, this was like his hero. for a lot of those guys too, that next generation of heavy metal, Ian Gillan was this larger than life hero. I mean, he was the singer for Deep Purple, and he had that banshee voice, that otherworldly thing that would come out of his mouth that just had that. He was just so awesome. Okay, anyway. Quote, performing is a release, a kind of high. The music really gets me worked up. It's the kind of music that makes people react. I don't want to see them clapping lightly. I want to see them go crazy, just like me, unquote. Recently, Iron Maiden joined the heavy metal elite. Its new album, Peace of Mind, its fourth for Capitol Records since 1980, shot up to number 17 on the Billboard magazine chart and will probably make the top 10, a major achievement for a heavy metal album. And by the way, those of you watching this video, do you remember that? Because see, I got into Iron Maiden, as I said a minute ago, Run to the Hills, of course, that was Number of the Beast. And it was so interesting when Peace of Mind was about to get released. I remember hearing Flight of Icarus on the radio, which was kind of unheard of, hearing Iron Maiden on the radio. And it wasn't like they played it a lot, because Iron Maiden's never really been a band that you hear on the radio almost ever. But I do remember that somehow this song kind of almost came across as a hit. Anyway, just curious if you remember that experience the same way that I do. Let's see here. Major achievement. Iron Maiden accumulated its huge following through extensive touring. Until recently, radio ignored its music. And it's funny, until recently, because I guess they did start playing a little bit of it, but they were never, at least the radio stations I used to listen to in my teenage years, Maiden was just never played on those things. Again, correct me if I'm wrong about that. If you lived in places where you would hear it, I mean, you'd have to have some sort of weird college alternative radio station or something back then, because it just was never on, at least in my experience, any mainstream radio stations. Let's see. Until recently, radio ignored its music. The radio people said it was too loud, too aggressive, too heavy, too raucous, too this, too that, Dickinson gripes. They're not interested in music, they're interested in advertising. They want music that will help sell pimple cream and toothpaste, unquote. However, Flight of Icarus, a single from Peace of Mind, has been getting airplay, undoubtedly a factor in the album's instant success. Musically, Iron Maiden did not do anything substantially different on Peace of Mind, produced by well-known heavy metal producer Martin Birch. And we've talked about Martin Birch on this show, I think, many times, because he pops up in all the stuff that I love. Of course, he produced the Black Sabbath stuff that had Ronnie James Dio. He had done some Rainbow stuff and Deep Purple. And of course, with Iron Maiden, he started producing them with Killers and then produced everything through, I can't remember what the last one he does was in the early 90s, but he worked with him on a lot of stuff. See, producer Martin Birch. So why are stations suddenly playing one of its singles? Quote, because we're headlining now, so radio can't ignore us anymore. No, now we're more acceptable. The stations just decided to play the most acceptable track on the album, unquote. A smart alecky cynic and somewhat of a snob, Dickinson admits he often has fun with people, usually self-righteous individuals who look down on him. Quote, the most unnerving thing you can do to these people is be polite to them, he says. You know what's on their minds. You know what they're thinking about you. So you speak to them nicely and you offer to buy them a drink and you act like they're so fascinating. They're so ready for you to be rude and disgusting that they're stunned. Meanwhile, you're cursing them under your breath because they really turn you off, unquote. And that's the end of the article. Anyway, I hope you enjoy that stuff. I think that stuff's so interesting. And please, as always, please follow the channel, like the video. And by the way, thank you for all the comments. Just on a personal note, we get so many, and it's really fun for me because I obviously am into all the history and all the interesting little backstory stuff related to all the music and all the how the people are intertwined and stuff. And the people that follow this channel, that watch these videos regularly, seem to be kind of a sophisticated group in that way. And it's so interesting that I will make some comments about something, and then I'll say them in the video, and then in the comment section, people are adding, oh yeah, and this, and you forgot to mention this, and I every day, just in the comments, I learn things from people. It's so interesting. So thank you so much for taking the time to put things in there. I think one of these days we're gonna make some videos where we just go through, maybe in a month or two, and just go find some of these really amazing comments that we get and just read them, make videos, and just talk about these additional things that were so fascinating. Anyway, again, thank you very much. And please leave any comments you have about this stuff. If you had similar experiences than I did, I would love to hear about it. And of course, with that, have yourself a fantastic day.